So today we have got a person from a company called S&P. He's a CEO and he has got around 20 years of experience in the data field, especially data governance and data quality. So let me introduce to all of you Srihari, who is a CEO from S&P, and we will start the conversation. So Srihari, welcome to the show, and we would like to have users know about you a little bit, and then we can take the conversation from there.
So sure, thank you very much, Sanjeev, for hosting me on the show, Data Ki Baat. Thank you very much. And I'm very excited to be here. We've got a lot of data enthusiasts on LinkedIn that follow each one of us. I'll be very, very happy to discuss my personal experiences as well as the experience of the firm when it comes to data governance. Thank you very much once again, Sanjeev.
Great. So when it comes to data governance, really, I think we have been talking for a while and really working together to put this show across. The whole idea was to really give the user a glimpse of what happens behind the scene when you really work with a company, when you work with a people or organization who has got a real data problem. We have often seen, and you've been telling me, right, that generally the theory kind of doesn't work. It's all about what you see, and then you kind of take actions and then tweak your solution and different ways to handle the data problem. So Can you talk about certain situation where you thought that, hey, all these framework tools and the things that you have read is not just working, it's something else?
All right. So Sanjeev, I think I'll probably answer this with a short story and experience that I've had.
Yeah.
I grew up in a small coastal town in India, right? Mm-hmm. And the beauty is there used to be a lot of people who used to come to my town, and it was a very famous tourist spot. And my house was just about 1.5 kilometers away from the beach. And the beach there was very well known all over India, right? Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. The best part is I would have hardly visited the beach maybe once a year. Sometimes I don't even do that. I remember at least 2 or 3 years gone by where I wouldn't have even gone to the beach at all, right? Mm-hmm. But then I see a lot of people that are coming and then using that. So one thing I noticed much early on is that when there is a perception that you have access to something and you have access to something very easily, you do not tend to take action to go and obtain it, right? So the beach was very, very close to me, but I would never bother about it because that was something in my mind. I always knew that I could go there anytime I wanted. So there was no big deal. Mm-hmm. I feel talking about data governance has kind of become like that because today data is so ubiquitous in the market. Mm-hmm. Everybody talks about it, right? Mm-hmm. So as an example, you can add any prefix to data. For example, you can say big data, you can say small data, you can say bad data, ugly data, intelligent data, dumb data, fantastic data, precise data, shallow data, obscure data, complementary data, supplementary data, proactive data, reactive data, and then you want to add a little bit more jargons to it. In all ways and forms, data, the word data gives meaning to the word before it or the word after it. So this kind of has made this so ubiquitous that people feel that there is no expertise in this because everybody has a view on it. So you call data governance, you ask anybody, everybody has a view on it. Yes. So this makes the actual definition between an expert in this area and somebody who talks about it because of access to information, easy access to information, that makes it very, very difficult to bring a formality around this. So what I have noticed whenever I go to firms is that, you start talking about it, everybody has a view, which means they would like to steer this conversation in a certain way or form, and they fail to recognize an expertise in this area. And they fail to recognize that while data is really, spoken everywhere, but that happens to be one of the key differentiators. And I always say this, that an organization's attitude towards their data really determines the acceleration or the deceleration of that organization towards creating a competitive edge in the market. So it's how they view their data and what kind of attitude they have towards it. That is what really matters.
Yeah, I mean, I think it is more about mindset. In my talk, Data Ki Baat, I think I have mentioned several times, right? If you really see, you will observe and then you will acknowledge, and almost everybody would do that, that there is a lot of seriousness around data. I mean, we definitely do talk about it. But when it comes to action, I do not see that enthusiasm meeting that action. So real,
Right.
real actions basically helps rather than, talking and then making it like as I wrote in one of my last posts, right? It is, to me, it feels like it is like become a fancy word where you kind of just keep on using it and feel that there is something that is getting better inside that organization
Absolutely.
or maybe with your
Yeah.
data, right?
Yeah.
I think actions is very much important than in anything. So a small action, like you said, and we were talking earlier, right? Those directional, approach, like that, okay, where are you going? Even if it is small, is gonna help, right? So
Right.
how has been your experience with one of? I mean, I don't want any name, and we just want to know
Right.
the experience here, right? Any situation that where you thought that there were real chaos with data, and you were able to make the little move by certain recommendation and act, and your client might have got benefited. Can you share about that a little bit?
Definitely. I mean, data and data governance, these areas are not glamorous areas, right? So one of the experiences that I've had, I would like to state that, good governed data with simple analytics takes you a lot further than badly governed data with complicated analytics. And the reason I state this is because I did come across a real life scenario where numerous investments have been made on the analytics side, the presentation layer. So they've been able to obtain at the presentation layer that can churn zettabytes of data and show you a report in a nanosecond. And then when I was sitting and talking to the CXOs, really when I asked them, are you making the decisions on the basis of that investment in the dashboard which you made? And unfortunately, the answer was no. So then I tend to ask them, so in this particular scenario, then I went on, and when we drilled deeper, we realized that most of the times an investment is made on the presentation layer and they have a fantastic dashboard. And that dashboard and all of that investment simply points to the fact that their data was not even ready. And that is how the journey actually started. So then we went on to talk about why the data wasn't ready. Then it came down to multiple parameters, things like trustworthiness of the data. The CXOs never trusted a certain division in their organization because for some reason they knew the people in that division are not following the right processes for whatever reasons, which is very much more softer in nature rather than technical reasons. They were not trusting that department that were producing this data. And then in order to increase the trustworthiness of the data, then we came up with a series of initiatives, so to speak, and all of them under the data governance umbrella, of course, but definitely overlapping in areas around data literacy as well, which is something that had to be spread across the organization. And people had to really understand at the point of creation of data why they were doing certain things, because to them at that point in time it didn't matter. But the consumer of data, which happens to be the CXO guys, they really were not understanding as to why the creator of data is not giving importance to this element. So we had to bridge that gap, and that really turned out to become a data governance initiative, so to speak. And for the most part, in most places that I go, Sanjeev, this is what I'm noticing, because it is not that people don't know. People exactly know what is happening.
Right.
It is just that sometimes the due importance is not given. So sometimes I feel we shouldn't be calling this data governance. We should be calling this something like I would say unsupervised, structured, focused control of enterprise data flow. And then put a beautiful acronym to it, USPMDF or whatever, And then if you call this program like that, you're going to have a lot of eyes and a lot of people latching onto it, and then, and then trying to get some certifications on it. And this whole thing will just, snowball into something that we would love to have.
So Srihari, why did you say unsupervised? I mean, that's kind of caught my attention. Why unsupervised? Because we talk about control. We talk about control, processes, policies, everything in data governance, and you said exactly the opposite, right?
Right. So what we do in every data governance program, Sanjeev, is we start off by putting those controls in place. And the one control that is very important that we miss is a control to prevent complacency. Mm-hmm. That control is a control that will drive minimal supervision. Because end of the day, data governance is a journey. It is something that you embed within your existing flow. You're not building a new flow because you embarked on a data governance exercise. Instead, you're taking your existing flows and you're putting in the concept of governance in every piece of it. And therefore, I love to call this unsupervised. And I picked it up from machine learning, by the way, supervised and unsupervised algorithms and so on and so forth. But it made a lot of sense because initially you're building these controls, but then bear in mind, you need to have a control to make sure that you don't get complacent very soon. Now, that is, to me, most important control that you can put in place, because that is what will drive it and that's what will keep the cycle going.
So here is what I think, right? I mean, I'm very, very high on the people first, people, process and technology, and obviously data. It's like all goes in together. But when I think about data governance, data quality, or anything to do with data, right? I always start from people, because like you rightly said, right? You do not have the technologies are there, right? If you really just think about anything, data governance, processes, flows, enterprise architecture, framework, and then many various tools are there. Gartner recommends that. Everybody kind of recommends that. But why, despite having all those tools, things are not working? It is because there is that mindset, there is that cultural stuff that has to be there and put it within the DNA of the organization. And that's where I believe that people is very, very important. And that's the reason I asked, right? Unsupervised, when you say that, probably you are talking about giving more ownership or onus on the people so that they are also feel empowered instead of controlled, right? You are kind of saying and pushing that, hey, look, take care of this, take care of the other things, and then all those stuff.
Yes.
But instead you can say that, hey, you are the owner of this whole thing. You're kind of responsible for the whole thing. Then probably they might feel empowered, and you don't have to supervise them to control your data or to take care of data, right? And that's what I thought. What are your thoughts in this?
Absolutely, Sanjeev. Data governance is actually a journey, right? We don't have a point where I could say that, okay, we are done with data governance now, let's move to the next topic. That's never going to happen. A couple of years ago, Sanjeev, those who look at my photograph on LinkedIn, they would realize that I definitely don't look what I look right now. So a couple of years ago, I embarked on an exercise and I actually pulled down about 14 kilograms, right? On my own. On my own. I never went to the gym, by the way. And then I realized in that process when I did that, why am I stating that is because in that process I realized that doing what I did to reduce is not a single event. It is not a single outcome. Now I have to stay like this for the rest of my life. Mm-hmm. How am I going to do that? So if I had decided that I would go to the gym 3 hours a day, and if I have to retain what I am today, I need to continue to do that. Now, I sat down and thought, would my lifestyle allow for it? Can I sustain this till I die? Because I don't want to go back to what I was, quite honestly. There is some motivation on the basis of my initial outcome, which I draw out of so that I can continue this. Now, this is directly related to data governance program in a firm. This is not a single event. We're not pushing the firm through an exercise within a gym to come up with, 100 initiatives, and then the moment the initiatives are done, okay, now I'm data governance ready, or I have reached my outcome. It doesn't work that way. So the only way you can embed this is everybody should view this not as an additional responsibility to what they're doing. They must view this as their day-to-day stuff, sort of like my lifestyle, how I have changed my lifestyle in order to remain where I am, right? Very, very similar.
Really awesome.
And that is why I would prefer to use the word unsupervised, and I would prefer to say that we embed these principles in their regular routine. And this is something that will drive things forward. And as long as we have some controls in place that makes sure that they don't go back. And like they say, you create something, over a 22-day period, then it automatically becomes a habit, right? So as long as we keep this going and we keep hitting it, then things will definitely fall into place.
Yeah, in the meantime, we got one question there. So how do you build the importance of entering the right data to those who create it? I mean, so it's all about creating and controlling at the source itself. That's a cool concept. So would you like to answer?
Yeah, actually, that's a nice question. I can remember one story for this. There were these Arctic expeditions that used to happen, and these Arctic expeditions started sometime in 1850s. I don't know if you heard of this, Sanjeev, but this is a common story in the data world. There was a beer which was made, which had a freezing point so low that beer would not freeze even in the Arctic zones. So the people that went to this expedition, this was made by a company called Allsop. So it was called Allsop's Arctic Ale, right? Now, some of that beer was still remaining, and there were only very few that was made for that expedition. It even had that 1852 expedition stuff on it. Now, one of the gentlemen on eBay, he chose to auction this beer. Now, here's the beauty, Sanjeev. I want all the viewers to know this. When he auctioned that beer, the way Allsop is spelled, it has two P's in the end. It's S-O-P-P, A-L-L-S-O-P-P. He misspelled it and he just put A-L-L-S-O-P. Now what happened, he went on auction on eBay. He got only 2 bids because nobody found the real beer. And he ended up selling that for $300 and some odd dollars. The person who bought it realized this was a mistake, and he immediately bought it, and within a few days he sold it back on eBay. And you know how much he got for it? $500,000.
Oh.
All
So
because
that's
of one spelling mistake at the source. Right?
So now I think
now somebody might say, Sanjeev, come on, it's a silly spelling mistake. We can have advanced AI mechanisms to catch it. And then, there are I know there are softwares in eBay that allows you to use artificial intelligence and come up with misspellings and then pick up all the nice bids out there. But the point is, convert this into an enterprise atmosphere, Sanjeev. You realize that these are silly mistakes, but the concept of digital twin that we have today, nobody is going to go into a warehouse and look for an item if the system doesn't say so. So if you make a mistake while you search for it, the system is going to say, I didn't find it. So the guy is not going to go and search in the shelf ever. So probably that item is going to be sitting there forever. So coming back to that question, how do you build the importance? This is how you build the importance. You need to have a story towards telling the enterprise, people in the firm, that while these mistakes look silly, you can fix it at point, but you cannot sustain that fix over a period. And that is why data governance comes into play. Data governance is not a sprint. Data governance is a marathon. We need people, we need players in the long run to go with it. So yeah, I mean, to that question, that it's a kind of a circuitous answer, but I guess it probably answers the viewer.
Definitely it does, basically. I mean, I can also, watch into that, right? The cost of the data is something that, you can realize by this example that Srihari just took, right? So the cost of bad quality data is kind of, going to definitely tell you that it has to be treated well. But other than that, right? And you, in your last, point, you talked about how we can create that culture of taking care of the data, and everybody should probably take a role. It should not be designated role. It's basically you assume the responsibility yourself, self-motivated, way of handling data. Like you said, you don't want to go and become the same Srihari which you were a year back, because you were kind of 15 kilo more, right? So how do you want to keep yourself motivated? By giving those, examples that, okay, you did this and then you got this. So those are the things that we have to create and inculcate in the people so that they are always self-motivated and we don't have to govern and supervise them. Instead, we should focus our, all our effort on supervising and managing data well. So that's really a nice, explanation. I think we got one more question here. How do you think can data science leverage to offer solid self-driven governance solution? Question from Uma Shankar Sahu.
Yeah. Now that's a very, very, very good question. I mean, today data science is being used to drive a lot of outcomes. And one of the outcomes data science is not being used enough today is around data governance. Because of the fact that data governance has got, what's the right word? The contribution of technology towards data governance is probably less than 50%. Because the contribution of people, the contribution of ownership, the contribution of all those things are much, much higher to enforce data governance. However, having said that, data science can definitely help to correct data creation at the source. So suppose today if I'm going out and creating, I don't know, a water bottle, for example, in a firm as a master data, and then as I'm creating, I misspell bottle with one T instead of two T's. And if I can have an algorithm that quickly recognizes it and corrects it, I mean, I'm giving a very simple example, but if there could be complicated algorithms that can correct it. Now, this value at that source is really has a multifold advantage. Because remember, every mistake in the data in a firm multiplies within the firm depending on the velocity of that data within the firm, depending on how much it is used in the firm. Yes. And master data is one such element that is used across every transaction. So it obviously makes a lot of sense for somebody to go to that source. And if we could use data science to make it happen, then why not? I mean, we routinely do that, and we've already done that in a couple of engagements where we've used data science for the benefit of data governance, which is kind of not readily spoken about in the market. Yeah.
So I think one more, I think we have got, how can technology help in adding governance by default? That's a nice term, right? I don't know who has asked this question, but governance by default, that's a really nice thing. It's kind of strike a lot of things in my head. How about you?
Yeah, definitely. My only word of caution there, Sanjeev, would be that, again, there have been instances, I'm remembering one other instance. I went to one of the CXO meetings here, and I realized that within his cabin, it was a sprawling big cabin, and I realized that within his cabin, he had a board, right? It was an electronic board that you could write anything on that board, and then you take a USB stick and plug it in. Whatever is on the board will get copied, and then he would just send it out to everybody, right? The whole thing was electronic. At the click of a button at the bottom of the board, you could erase everything that you wrote. You could change colors. You could do many things. Now, what happened is I went to him and I asked him, all right, why don't we use this board since it is available? And then he told me, you know what, don't bother about it. I have this flip chart here. Let's just use the flip chart. So we went through the whole meeting with a flip chart. And then I asked him, hey, how much would this have costed? And the number he gave me was staggering. And I told him, why would you make this investment? Of course, he had his own reasons and his own answers. But as I was walking out of that meeting, Sanjeev, I quickly realized that the reason he had the board there was because one sales guy did a phenomenal job of selling that board to him. And once he bought the board, he realized that it came up with, it had so many issues with it that he never used it actually. He just went back to the flip chart because he realized that's a lot more easier to do. Sometimes we fall into this trap even in the data governance space because, I mean, trust you, trust me, trust everybody else. Selling a product is very easy. And if you have a good sales guy, he could sell anything. I mean, we have examples in India where people have sold, I don't know, buildings that are right in front of them that belong to the government, right? I mean, we have such examples even in the US that has happened. People have sold the Eiffel Tower to somebody, right? Now that is a trap that I would really caution people on, because data governance can never have its origin on a tool and purchase of a tool. The imperatives and the motivation of data governance should initially come out from within the organization and why they want to use the data in a certain way. And then you look at the tool sets in the market and then you fit them in. You don't take a tool and force fit your requirement into it. It's something that a lot of people do because large companies that are building tools would like people to buy tools. I
have had this interesting scenario. I think it's like a small story I will share. So by the virtue of me being on the LinkedIn and living my passion, I kind of get people contact me and just want to talk and say that, okay, can you help me with this? I'm having this thought. Can we discuss and things like that? So one of the company, they had this feeling or the urge of buying tool, and when I asked that why, and then they said this is the problem. And this is something that we are facing. And I suggested a similar thing. I said, you got to stop here, basically. You have to clearly go back and define your purpose. You have to basically go back to why is that you want that tool. And if the tool is not there, how would you still be able to, because I truly believe that you need a tool to scale. You need a tool for creating efficiency or, maybe faster way of accomplishing the same thing, but you should always be able to deal with the problem manually as well, right? I said, okay, can you deal with this problem manually? Let's walk it through. Let's walk. Try your Excel sheet and try to see that can you still solve the problem manually within your organization, and that's where you will know that what is the issue with the process, what is happening actually, and then you go and see the tool and fit that tool in. Otherwise, what happens? We generally don't try to solve the problem within, discuss within, understand the process within, and then we buy the tool and try to fit the process. Instead, we should basically create the process and then see where which tool can fit and help us here to accelerate faster.
Very true.
On the similar lines you just said, right? I think we have one more question here. I think that's very interesting. Has data governance lost its sign? How do we go about educating CXOs about it? That's a really a thematic question. That's what the whole theme is. Right?
So, couple of years ago, I was reading an HBR article. I don't know, probably it's older. I'm not able to quote it exactly, but there was this particular thing. They said deliberate avoidance of information, right? I got interested in that. What do you mean by deliberate avoidance of information? Then I realized when you look at the examples, health-related issues, right? Let's say you and I, Sanjeev, will live our day-to-day life, and especially in today's situation, in COVID situation, let's say you start coughing suddenly, right? The first thing that comes to my mind, oh my God, I mean, is there phlegm? Am I able to breathe properly? And I start breathing more, and there's more consciousness that goes into it, right? What I do at that situation is I deliberately avoid any information related to what's happening with me because I fear the outcome. I fear the outcome. So I try to keep it within myself. Another example is calorific values of food. Suppose you love to eat ice cream, right? You will never see the calories of the ice cream because you like it. You avoid the calories and you immediately lap it in because you just want to eat it. Same thing with organizations. Talk about project managers who are trying to give you the status of a project. They will deliberately avoid certain pieces of information because they don't want to show red. They would rather show the yellows and the greens, and the reds will always come later because they try to keep it away. Remember, I'm not saying this in a derogatory sense. It is just human psychology because we don't want to go there. Data and data governance has got a similar issue. People like to avoid talking anything about data and the issues they have with data within the organization because they know the outcome would mean a blame game or some department being pulled up or somebody having done a mistake. So why even go there? So don't even admit anything. Right. And therefore, when anybody talks about data governance and all that, they try to pull the topic down and say, no, we have this in place. We have phenomenal people. We have everything under control. Oh, it's a silly spelling mistake. Don't worry, we'll tackle it. So from that perspective, yes, data governance is not lost its sheen in the market, but I think we as data educators, we need to come out very strongly and kind of pull this cat out of the bag, so to speak. And if we're able to do that, then I think we're able to expose the organization, because remember, Sanjeev, accepting there is an issue is already pushing you up one notch in the data governance maturity model. It's already pushing you up. Yeah.
It's called accepting the vulnerability. Basically, yes. If you start accepting that you are kind of helpless or maybe feeling vulnerable, that's the first yes. start, because you get your mind to focus that there is a problem. If you start yes. hiding those reds, you're gonna just ignore this, keep it aside, and then keep on moving, thinking. Again, I was talking about that. Your mind kind of tells you that there is nothing, everything is all right. Let's continue. So you do not let your subconscious mind or your whole organization feel that it is good just because you're talking about data governance and you're talking more and more and more, thinking that everything is all right. It's not that. You got to stop, step back, see where you are and things like that. So one more question. I think we are at the really close of our time. I know we can always talk more and more about this.
We'll stop going live and we'll continue to talk about the questions, Sanjeev. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. So one last question, and then we will have a last thought from you, and then we will close this, and we will hope that we'll probably do the next one in continuation and take it from there. Okay. So how does data governance differ from information governance? How do we socialize this message across the enterprise if you have both initiative active? That's a great question.
Yeah. Right. Good question. See, every organization, when we go to an organization in the consulting world, we do something called as a value stream exercise. We try to look at the organization and try to see what are the processes that falls under creating value for the firm, right? If we do the same thing for data, right? Data governance is sort of like the foundation within the value stream, which drives it towards information governance, so to speak. So it's kind of like I cannot say that it is sequential, but I can definitely say that governing data really is the root of the issue, and governing information is really the plant that has come out of the root already. So you got to take care of the root by providing it the water and nutrients and whatever it requires. And you also have to make sure that the plant that is growing is getting enough sunlight, is in a proper place, it is not crowded, and so on and so forth. So it's really data governance and information governance working together is actually going to give you the seeds and the apples and the oranges that the fruit that the plant can bear, right? End of the day. I think that's how they both are related. I couldn't come up with a better analogy as I'm just thinking right now, but I believe that's how they're linked up.
Okay. So I think that's really great. So before we kind of stop and I wanted to really ask, right, what is those couple of things that you think organization trying to thrive with data should be doing, which they are not doing right now?
So two things, Sanjeev. One is treat your data as an asset, right? And when I say that, I don't really mean like it's kind of cliche now. Everybody says data is your asset, data is your asset. But they don't take actions to treat it as an asset. So let's say you have an asset, you have a laptop or a server that you bought for the firm. How do you treat it? You have a control for it. You put it in the CMDB database. You do maintenance on it. You have people looking at who's owning it today. You track it. You take physical count of it on a yearly basis. This is what you need to do with your data. Whatever you create as an asset, you put a control on it. You manage it. You track it. You see every year what's happening to it, right? So that's the first message. The second message, which I think I mentioned early on, is that I think everybody must strive towards good governed data with simple analytics, as opposed to ungoverned data with complicated analytics, trying to resolve for all the issues that has come because you haven't governed it to begin with, right? So I think these are the two key messages I would like to leave, Sanjeev, to our viewers here.
Okay, so I'll add something on top of it, right? I mean, you talked about this, and that's a great way of ending and making people think. And then we will definitely be open for the questions. You can always post it, and then we will look at it and then answer. But before we go, right, I strongly believe, and we all know it's no rocket science when I'm telling that organization is made up of people, and you drive any program, be it a data governance, be it an information governance, or whatever, right? Any cultural change, everything else, it depends upon people, right? So what I truly believe is that if the people who are going to really take care of data are not self-motivated, if they do not own that responsibility, they should start behaving like a data steward. You should not assign the role to them that, hey, you are a data steward and you are this owner of data, and then only you will take care of it. So I drive this initiative called Master Your Data, Master Your Life. When I say that, what I mean is that I always see that if you are a self-motivated person apart, outside your organization life, then only you kind of make up a person who is going to help the organization with the data.
Like within our organization, we say, Sanjeev, data stewards are not created, they are found.
Not created, they are found.
They are found. Yeah.
So that's how it is. So it's all upon people who can really take that responsibility. They can own it and they can drive it, and then process will help, technology will help. Otherwise, you will always be thinking and talking and might not get the result that you are expecting. So try to look at that, think about it, and let us know what is that you want to hear from us next time. Post your questions and we'll take it from there, right? Srihari?
Absolutely. Thank you very much, Sanjeev. Really appreciate this. I think a lot of ideas, a lot of things sparked in my mind on account of this. It was really nice to have this. We must do another session. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Srihari. Thank you very much everybody for watching this, and we will take up your questions if we have missed something and then respond to you. Thank you very much. Thanks for watching Data Ki Baat.